Hello and welcome to video 2 on my proposal submission. This video will cover 3 basics tabs that are open after initiating a proposal. When initiating a proposal as a researcher, you will go to the Researcher tab. As a unit aggregator, you will go to the Unit tab. Researchers can create proposal. Once that initial page is saved, it will be listed under All My Proposals. As a unit aggregator, this will be under proposal development. Plus, you can also search the proposal log if you have the initiator name, if you have the document number, the transmittal ID. Any of those can be found by searching the proposal log as long as you've been given access. For my example, I will go in as a researcher. The Create Proposal page is the first tab of the Basics section in my proposals. You really just need to have 6 pieces of information in order to initiate a proposal. We do ask investigators to initiate this as soon as you become aware of an opportunity so that it goes onto the calendar of research and sponsored programs staff. We don't expect you to have everything developed immediately, but final documents really should be submitted to central office at least 2 weeks before the sponsor deadline. So there's time to gather approvals, get signatures, and make any revisions if we notice something is not in alignment with sponsor expectations. The proposal type is just asking if it is new, if this is a continuation, renewal, or supplement, and in some cases, if it is a pre-proposal. Most of the time, this is a new proposal. You are submitting something that has never been submitted before, or it's been tweaked from a different submission to another sponsor. This is something that has not existed before in my proposals. A continuation would be a request to increase funding, statement of work, and the period of performance on an already existing award, which is different from a renewal where this would be related to an existing award, but it would be a different award number. Also different from a supplement or amendment, which is making changes to funding or statement of work, but does not extend the period of performance. Pre-proposal is the odd one out. This is not always required to be entered into my proposals. These are letters of interest, letters of intent. These go to sponsors, but it's not really a commitment on behalf of the university. However, if it does require a commitment or a budget review, that does need to go through my proposals. And you would enter the pre-proposal transmittal ID into the notes section of your new full proposal. The lead unit is the unit that will be taking over the administrative oversight if the project were to be awarded. They will need to ensure that the work aligns with the unit's mission, that the researcher or researchers are qualified to perform the work, there is space, there are resources, and if there is cost sharing, that is being verified by this lead unit. All UIS units will begin with 4, so that should already start to be populated in your suggested. But if you do not know the exact code for your unit, you can type in a keyword. For example, my unit is research and innovation, so I would find that by typing in the start of research. The lead unit is the only item that cannot be edited after you hit the Save and Continue button, so please ensure that is correct. Otherwise, you will have to either re-enter everything or copy the submission into a new submission and then cancel the original. Activity type, there are 7 options here. Those options are basic research, applied research, development research, sponsored instruction, other sponsored activity, fellowship, and clinical trial. Basic research is experimental or theoretical work that is made to acquire new knowledge, but there's no particular application. Applied research is one step beyond that, where the new knowledge is being applied to a specific aim or objective. Development research are the systematic works that are directed at producing new products or processes or improving ones that already exist. Sponsored instruction is teaching or training activities designed for students, which is very similar to what a fellowship would be. However, this is slightly different because the PI would be a non-faculty individual. Often these would not go through myProposals because they're often awarded to the individual. However, when it is awarded to an institution, it often does not assess indirect costs, which is why it is a subcategory separate from sponsored instruction. Other sponsored activities are applications of existing protocols for the benefit of the sponsor, institution, or the instruction of non-students. These could be service agreements, an agreement to use institutional facilities, conference travel, public events, things like that. And clinical trials are not super frequent at UIS, but these are those NIH-funded research objectives with human subjects assigned interventions on health and behavioral outcomes. These have an additional requirement to register with clinicaltrials.gov, or the project is controlled by the FDA or another approved sponsor. Project dates are just an estimated start date and an estimated end date. Be aware that these project dates will influence your budget periods. So if you are one day over a year span, it will create a separate budget entry for that one extra day. So you would want to go January 1st to December 31st rather than January 1st to January 1st. Just something to keep in mind, but it can be edited after initial entry. Project titles are limited to 200 characters, which is in alignment with most federal sponsors. So if it is a longer title, try to truncate it into something that makes sense. The sponsor is going to be the entity directly paying the institution. If you are applying directly to the sponsor, you will enter this directly. For example, if the National Science Foundation is who you are applying to, who would be paying us, that is your entry into sponsor. However, if the University of Tennessee is submitting the protocol and they will be paying us as a subaward or a subrecipient, our sponsor would be the University of Tennessee. And as we enter things, a prime sponsor will show up as an option on our main page. We will hit save and continue to move to the next spot. Now that we have saved that page, the Create Proposal becomes the Proposal Details tab under the Basic category. You'll also notice that a prime sponsor area has been added. If UIS is applying directly to the sponsor, a prime sponsor does not need to be added. However, if the money is passing from the prime sponsor to another entity before it comes to UIS, then a prime sponsor needs to be entered. In the previous example, the University of Tennessee was paying UIS, but the original funds, the prime sponsor, might have been the National Institutes of Health. That is when you would enter the prime sponsor. The second tab under the Basics category is Delivery Information. And that is asking who is submitting the final proposal externally and how. Submission by central office is typically the correct choice. Many sponsors require an authorized organizational representative to submit on behalf of the university. The only individuals in the university with that authority are located in the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs. In some instances, authority can be given to the unit, but that does need to be requested in advance and approved by the office. The submission type typically is electronic. If it is by mail or specifically do not mail, you can select one of those. If it is electronic or by mail, you would need to enter the mailing address or the electronic submission system. Many federal entities require you to submit via a portal such as research.gov, grants.gov, NIH Assist. You would enter whatever that is. If I can spell, my goodness. 50 times the term. You would enter whatever that is. If it needs to be emailed to someone specifically, you would tell us who it needs to be emailed to. If it needs to be mailed a physical copy, you would tell us the number of hard copies they require. The third tab under Basics is arguably the most important for the reports our office pulls, and that is the deadline and deadline type. The options are hard or target. Hard deadlines mean after a certain time on a certain date, no more proposals will be submitted. A target deadline is what either the unit or the sponsor are aiming for. They will accept it after there is a little more leniency with the deadline. Entering the sponsor deadline is critically important, as this is the one piece of information we use to pull our reports every week to know how to prioritize our submissions and how to divvy up the responsibility in our office. So if it is due June 25th, please make sure we have everything by June 11th. And then if there is a specific time, let us know what that is in Central Time, because if it's a hard deadline, some sponsors will not accept it after 11:59 Eastern Time. So we need to be aware that it needs to be done by 10:59 Central Time. For example, NSF is always 5 p.m. institution local time. Notice of opportunity tells us if this is a federal grant, a federal contract, unsolicited, non-federal, so it could be state or private, or if this is a university or system internal award. Opportunity ID, this really does help us look up the solicitation guidelines, frequently asked questions, to know all about the intricacies of what you're applying for. And then if you have started a submission in the sponsors portal, some of them will give you a temporary application ID. If you don't have one, this can be left blank. It is not a big deal. Once your proposal details, delivery information, sponsor, and program information is entered into your Basics tab, we can save it. And then we will see you in the next video, which will go over the Key Personnel tab.